Hi, I'm Amy, and this is Mowgli, and we are in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona right now, and this is Hamilton, the honey wagon. Welcome to the interior. First off, on this side of the van is my kitchen. This is a 2-burner Coleman stove with the oven underneath, or Camp Chef. Although I haven't used the oven as much as I'd like to, I'm not mad about having it because it still acts as a storage space. I can keep pans and some cooking trays in there. And then the stovetop folds down so it can be my countertop, which is nice when I'm not needing to cook. And then I have a propane tank underneath in this cabinet right below it. That's wired through the cabinet. And then we weren't sure what the heat was like from the oven, and I didn't want to accidentally burn my van down. So there's actually a heat protectant layer around the oven part, between the oven and the wood. So it feels really safe. The wood's never gotten hot, so feel good about it so far. And then because basically my stovetop, when it is closed, is my only counter space, we added a fold-up counter extension, which I use all the time. And then over here I have my sink that has a cover to it, so this does act as more counter space, but most of the time I have it open when I'm working in the kitchen. My sink is one thing I would change. It's fine width-wise, it is not deep enough, and it's very annoying to do dishes. I tend to make a little bit of a mess because it's not very deep. But it's worked for me this far, and I got one of these like foldable roll-up wire racks, so I can have a drying rack in my sink instead of having to take up counter space to do that. It also kind of acts like a heat mat if I have a hot pan I need to put down on my wood. I didn't want to have an electric pump that I had to have plugged in, and they're kind of loud. And so I found a battery powered faucet that's made to just kind of go on those like 5-gallon water jugs. And we just put some PVC pipe through my countertop and mounted it onto there. And there's just a button on top that you turn it on and off. It's not crazy pressurized or anything, but it's been more than enough for me for the last year. So under my sink, there is a 7-gallon water tank, and then I also have a 7-gallon water tank up front that I use for drinking water for me and the dog, and when I'm filling up a pot for tea or whatnot. And I try to minimize or just use the tank under the sink for dishes. And I probably refill those. They're never empty at the same time, of course, but we go probably 10 to 14 days with 14 gallons of water. Okay, so another part of my kitchen are these upper cabinets. There are 3 separate compartments up here. I have a small-ish pantry, and so I put my seasonings up here that I use the most often, and I just screwed the cap into the bottom of the cabinet, and then so I can just unscrew the seasoning off and use it and put it back. Okay, so we moved my fridge from the AC spot down to under my bed, and it's bungeed across so when I break too hard it doesn't come flying out at me. And then I pull it out. I put outdoor carpet on the bottom of it so it would slide easier. I also put it on the top of it so that it can act as our step up onto the bed. Mowgli can't do that jump on her own, so it's mostly there for her. It was too slippery before. But it's a top open DC fridge. It's been wonderful for my battery life. Keeps everything cold, sometimes too cold. It's been a really, really great improvement. This drawer above my fridge is we call the magic drawer because it's huge and it stores a bunch of stuff that I wanted to bring with me, but I had no idea where it would go. This latch was not enough to hold it closed sometimes, so it has 2. And and the eye hook seems to work really well for things like this. But it's a very, very big drawer. It's this deep, and I have like a few bins in there to kind of keep things organized in here, but this is where I keep a lot of my paperwork, camera, kind of those bigger things that I don't want to get damaged while I'm driving, but are kind of awkward to house in other places. My van life story started, I guess, the winter of 2018, and I met a friend of a friend who lived in a van, and I checked out his van, and I was thought good for him, but I couldn't live in this rig, and but the idea was appealing, but I was finishing up grad school and whatnot. And then the next year he came back to Tucson and brought a friend who had a van that was a taller roof and had a kitchen and was a little bit more built out. And I was like, this is something I could see myself doing long term in a rig like this. And as that winter ended, it turned into spring, which was 2020, March of 2020. And pandemic was going on, and a lot of the van life community came to Tucson where I was. I ended up kind of camping with them almost every weekend out of my 4Runner, and the more I was around them, the more I saw their rigs, the more I was like, this is totally something I could do and want to do. So I reached out to my grandpa, who had been doing a bunch of woodworking projects, and asked him if I bought a van, if he would help me build it out. And he was ecstatic from the beginning and thought that this was the perfect time in my life to do it, and was on board. We found this van on Craigslist in Denver, Colorado. It had a lot of miles on it, but my uncle's a mechanic, and he was willing to help kind of fix whatever was wrong with it. Which he might regret to this day a little bit. But while he was working on that, when we brought it back from Denver, we were doing a bunch of research, starting to kind of build out pieces of the inside, deciding what we were gonna do. And yeah, we built it out over 4 months, I wanna say. And I moved maybe 5 months, and then I was working as a lab technician at a bee research lab. I was also working at a pig sanctuary on the weekends, and somehow fitting in time to drive down to Sierra Vista to help my grandpa build this out, and then moved into it in May of 2021. So this is where I spend most of my time. I don't really have a name for this area. I guess it's kind of my living room, bathroom, office. So on this wall is where all of my power controls are, my battery monitor, my solar monitor. I have a switch to my inverter because I don't always need my AC power. So I can just turn that on when I want to and not drain my battery just having it on all the time. And then I have a 12-volt outlet, an AC outlet, and then my lights are on a dimmer switch. This bench is actually my composting toilet. It is a separated seat to separate solids and liquids. And underneath is a bucket with coco coir for solid waste. And then in the front is a liquid waste jug that I can all access under here with some cleaning supplies. My window nook is one of my favorite things about my van, and it has all my little memories and little things from other people that I see and I remember them. When we were making the window, my original thought was we were just gonna make it square and it would just come, this would have been straight out, and I had a friend recommend that we kind of make it at an angle and the light comes in a little bit more. And when I told my grandpa that idea, he got, it was a challenge because angles are always harder, but we made it work. And it was just white at first for the first few months I was in the van, and I had a friend who painted this pattern on there for me and the mandala on the front of the van. And it brought so much more character, and it made me want to decorate it a little bit more. So I really wanted to do a live edge countertop in my van, but I don't have much actual edge to my counter. So we did it with this table, and it's actually black walnut, and I got it from a local guy in Tucson, and we just put like an oil base on it. We didn't finish it or stain it or anything, and it's actually on hinges, and it can fold down if I need to move something big in that space. I don't do that very often because the dog bed is there now, but it's an option if I need it. Okay, so then up top here is some storage. I just kind of keep soft things up here because sometimes they fall down. So it's just jackets basically. I have some charging cords and sunglasses up here that I need to access while I'm driving. And then up here, my lovely, lovely grandma sewed this piece of fabric and put Velcro on either side because this is fuzzy. And so we just put the hook side of the Velcro on here, and I can store my Reflectics up here because they were driving me crazy because I was having to move them from my seats to my bed, from my bed up here every time I was stopping and going, and it was driving me crazy. So we created a little pocket for them, and it looks nicer and they are out of sight. So moving towards the back of the van, this top part of this unit is my closet. This side is kind of random things, bathroom stuff. Up here we made little cubbies so that it was easier to get to. It used to just be one giant cubby with one bin, and I had to dig through everything all the time, so definitely more storage. Smaller storage options with little bins was better. And then these 3 drawers. This side is hanging clothes and where I keep my dirty clothes bag. So the bottom half of this unit is my pantry. We also made a chevron door for this, which I'm very proud of. It has 2 drawers technically. The top one has a small compartment and then a deeper one. This is where the rest of my spices are, tea, those kinds of things. The top is my silverware, which is always a mess, but it's a small drawer, so you find it when you need to. The bottom drawer is just a little bit deeper, and this is also where my cutting boards live. Okay, so where I was living in California for about 11 months was on a horse boarding farm facility, and there were flies everywhere all the time, all summer, and it was absurd. I swear at one point there were like 700 flies in my van, and I didn't even want to look at my roof because it was horrible. So I installed these screens basically they're made for a house, so they don't fit perfect, but they basically just Velcro up around the edge up here, and this one comes down the same way, and they are magnetic in the middle, and it was a extreme quality of life improvement. The Nomad Community is something that I really, really treasure, and I was lucky enough to be exposed to it before I actually lived in a van. And so once I got on the road, even though I was stationary for most of my first year, I already had a group of people that were living the same lifestyle as me, and I could reach out to when I was having a hard time, or was in a new place and didn't know where to park, or going through the ropes of learning how to sustain this lifestyle. I feel really lucky and grateful that I had those people in my life from the start. Every chance I get, I try to be at whatever gatherings I can be, or when I know there's a group of us somewhere in the desert or in the trees somewhere, I I try to be a part of it. It was really hard, you know, through basically from Thanksgiving to the end of January. They had a Vansgiving, and then there was they had all got together in the desert for New Year's, and there's like RTR and Schoolie-Palooza in January, and those were things that I couldn't get to because I had a stationary job, and in order for me to go, I would have to leave, drive 10 hours at night, get there, be there for maybe a day, maybe one night, and then have to turn around and be back at work by 9 a.m. on Monday. And with gas prices and my sanity, it was not possible to be at a lot of those things. So I had a lot of FOMO, for lack of a better term, in those months, because I just couldn't be at some of those things, and I felt like I was missing out on some of those community building times that I could have been connecting with other people who live the same lifestyle. But I am lucky that I have already had some of those in my life, and when I can make it just for a weekend, the joke is that I'm 24-hour Amy. I'm always at camp for 24 hours. I can get there, I spend a night, I leave by midday the next day because I always have somewhere else to be. But I always try to make it, and they're always, I always get a running hug when I show up, so it's worth it. So welcome to the bedroom. I have a few upper cabinets back here that house more clothes. And then to add to my clothing storage, I have these pillows that are I just bought throw pillow covers without the insert. And these are just like my workout clothes. It doesn't matter if they're wrinkly or just like kind of shoved in there. And then we just recently added, I'm only 5'2", so I technically do fit long ways in this bed. But with a dog taking up some space, I end up sleeping it sort of diagonal or whatnot, and my toes were falling asleep. So we just pushed in the wall about like 3.5 inches, I think it was, and framed it up so it looks kind of nice, and it makes a huge difference. I had a hard time convincing my grandpa that 3 inches would make that big of a difference, but it really did. And we also pushed in the side on the where my pillows go, so my pillows kind of set in a little bit more, so I have a little bit extra length, and it's been really great. There were a lot of fan choices, and I got a lot of recommendations from people that I had already lived in vans before I purchased mine, and I settled on a Max Air fan. It seemed like those ones were a little bit more reliable. I somehow, though, bought one that only sucks out and does not have the like reverse mode to pull air in, which is kind of annoying, but it's stuck there now. To replace it would be quite the project, and it hasn't bothered me so far. I have a little bit of molding on the back wall just to kind of fill a gap between the wall and the roof, make it look a little nicer, and then I have lights. These are little bee lights. I work with honeybees. They've been a part of my life for 6.5 years. I'm a beekeeper, so someone gifted them to me when I was in a house, and they felt like they should come with me. They are AC powered though, so it's special occasions that I turn on my inverter and plug those in. And then around the entire perimeter of the van, I have these just little copper twinkle lights that are battery powered. And I have to keep my little remote for those up here. With a command strip, which is what most of my things in the van are held up with, are command strips. So welcome to my garage. This is one of my favorite parts of my van. It houses all the things that I need to do the things that I love. It was really important to me that I have space for those things. So on this side, I have my fold-up kayak that I love. I use it more than most things in this van. This is Mowgli's dog food, my beekeeping equipment. I have one of those love seat Kelty chairs for me and Mowgli. Backpacks, hiking stuff. This is a Mr. Buddy heater for when it's cold. On this side is my bike. that's on a pull-out rack. And then all of my power stuff is on that wall. We call that my power porch. My battery's in its own little box inverter, an overkill inverter. And then I put these shoe racks on that I already had in my house for the shoes that I don't wear all the time. And then my friend Ed, who's also a nomad, she painted this for me custom. I wanted something to be on the back of my bed when I opened up these back doors. And I'm from the desert and it's really important to me, but I really enjoy being in the pine trees, so she kind of put that all in one piece together for me. And then up top I have a rooftop deck that's made out of marine grade plywood that we just put lots and lots and lots of layers of finish on. Growing in the van has been an opportunity I don't know that I would have gotten if I didn't move into the van. I was not nearly as independent of a person before I lived in the van, and I realized I always knew I was capable, but I accepted that I was capable of doing things. It was, I know I can do certain things, but I didn't even try to do them before. It was, if something broke, I went to someone else to help me fix it, and now something happens and I'm like, well, how do I fix this? And I figure it out, and there are a lot more opportunities for that in this lifestyle, because things break and move and fall, and nothing ever goes according to plan. But it's all these experiences that come at you that wouldn't have otherwise, that show you how capable you are, that you don't necessarily need someone, but that people do show up for you when you do need help, and that it's okay to ask for help, which was also something I struggled with before moving into the van. So lots of growth in a lot of ways I didn't quite know I needed before. Thank you for following along in my van tour, and if you're interested in learning more about bees or honey, you can follow the Honey Wagon Instagram, or if you're just interested in my van adventures, you can follow my personal Instagram, and those will be in the description below. Thanks for watching.